Welcome back. Tonight's show will be part three of a five-part series titled SEB Presents Women in the Field. For 1 week, we're interviewing some amazing women that are out there making a difference in the Bigfoot community, whether it be through education or gathering evidence. Tonight's guest is Suzanne Ferencak. Suzanne lives in Ohio and she had a sighting in 2013. Not only did she just have a sighting, but then she continued to have experiences on her property for several years after the sighting. She was a witness on Finding Bigfoot, and she was the subject of a Bigfoot documentary titled The Back 80. Suzanne has also attended several BFRO and private expeditions. Her and her husband created BigfootTrivia.com, and she's spoken at the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Conference and the Hocking Hills Bigfoot Festival. She also serves as coordinator of the Pleasant Hill Lake Bigfoot Base Camp's annual event. So, welcome, Suzanne. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome,
Appreciate it.
Suzanne.
Welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well-
Glad to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Yes,
So I
Scott wanted to invite you on the show. Said you was a good friend of his. So,
Yep. We've had a few expeditions together and good times.
Yeah,
Um,
excellent expeditions and very good times. Yes.
Yeah. So I guess we get started with the back 80, which was, I guess, what really got all this going. What was your first experience that brought about that recording that you had to make on the whole back 80? Well, how did it get started?
Yeah, Alan McGargle and Jesse Morgan filmed that in 2016. It took about a year at our property, and but it was May 14th, 2013, that I had a big black thing jump across a back road that I was on near my house, and I had no idea about Bigfoots before that, other than seeing the PGF when I was a kid on In Search of. My sister-in-law had talked about a year before we were camped somewhere, and she said everything was squatchy, and I'm like, well, what does that mean, squatchy? I just no clue. And so then I surfed the Finding Bigfoot show a couple times, and it didn't really catch my interest at the time. I just kind of looked at it and moved on. And so maybe there are Bigfoots in the Pacific Northwest, but I certainly didn't consider it very much, and I certainly didn't think that there were any in Ohio until May 14th, 2013. And it happened really fast. I was stopped taking pictures of horses, and that were right next to the road, and it's a little back road, the kind of a dirt road, and you have to move over to one side if there's another car coming, and it's not traveled very much. And so I was sitting there for a while, um, just not really doing anything. I had the tunes cranked, and I just put my phone down to look forward, and then that's when I saw the thing jump across the road like that. And at first I thought it was a deer because that's everything that jumps around here, but it just didn't make sense because it was black. And this is a daylight sighting. It was 8 o'clock, and May 14th is still light until 9ish at least. So but I was just always like, was it part of a shadow? I don't know, the whole thing just didn't make sense to me at the time. um but I just couldn't figure out. I'm like, that's not a deer. I mean, it was 7 feet over the road, right in the middle of the road. It didn't land in the road. It started from the left. There was a kind of a little hill, and then there was a small, like a skinny, you know, cattle fence kind of a thing. I don't think it was electric. It was kind of in big disrepair. And then it jumped over the road and then landed in this slight ravine where there's a stream. And I just couldn't figure out what that was. And it just settled on that it was a Bigfoot. And I just started laughing hysterically. I don't know if it was just that was my nervous reaction, but I'm just like, there's no way that I just saw a Bigfoot jump over the road. in Ohio. Look at me, he's like all excited. And so I just, while I'm laughing hysterically, it was nervous because it was weird. I just didn't know what I was seeing, and I just, something was strange had just happened. And so then I called my sister-in-law, the one who had said the year before that things were squatchy, and I just said, "You're never going to believe what I'm going to tell you." And she's like, "What?" Because I could hardly get the words out of my mouth. And I said, "I just think I just saw a Sasquatch." And she's just like, "What?" And so that's what started it all. And there was a cascade of events that happened just shortly after that that just blew my mind. And almost 10 years later, I think I finally calmed down.
So, after you saw that thing jump across the road, you said it landed on the inside of the fence and then jumped again over the fence, right?
It jumped over the fence and then landed in a ravine where there was no
Oh, I
fence.
got you. So it never even touched the road anywhere.
It didn't
It
touch
just went.
the road. And there's in the back 80, Mark Maisel said that it landed in the road. And I think where that comes from is that when I said it was in the middle of the road, like it was in the middle of my vision, like when it was
Right.
jumping over the road, it was right in the middle when I looked at it. So, but it never
Okay, I
landed.
didn't
It never
understand
landed.
before that it cleared the road, so it literally cleared the road.
Yes, it
And
cleared the
did
road.
it stay on 2 feet the whole time, or when it landed, did it go down on all fours or anything?
It was like when it jumped, it was like this, and then I could see the back legs coming around, and then like it was going to be part of a landing. And like Renee from Finding Bigfoot, I was never a jumper. Yeah, I never watched like a lot of high jumping and stuff like that or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But she described it accurately. It is like somebody doing a jump, like in the Olympics when you run and you take a jump, and then you're like this, and then your feet
Mm-hmm.
come for the landing. So it was. I watched the motion of the feet come underneath it, and then it just disappeared into the trees and stuff. Just like bushes and that kind of thing. And I
To your
just
memory, do you think that its shape, the legs were longer than the arms, or the arms were longer than the legs, or anything like that, for it to bring the legs around like that and land maybe on all fours?
I was hard to tell because the legs were kind of had been tucked in. I
I
saw
got
the
you.
arms, and the arms were quite long. And it was Cliff Barackman that's the one that coined it Superman arms, like this. So I
Yeah,
saw the arms out. The legs were just kind of coming around and like kind of tucking in.
I got you. And so you left and made your phone calls, and then what happened after that? Where did it go from there?
Well, my in-laws kept, were laughing at me for 2 weeks. Or,
Oh,
I mean, everybody started like, what do you mean Suzanne saw a Sasquatch? And I'm like, so I mean, it was out there, and but 2 days later, after I'd seen it, I was doing some research on the computer for a job interview, and before I shut the computer, I just decided, even though this just sounds completely ridiculous, and that's even what I saw. I'm just going to type in Google Bigfoot, Ohio, see if anybody in Ohio has ever seen a Bigfoot before. And, bam, you know, there's just a ton of stuff. And I was just like, whoa. I saw the BFRO.net, and then I clicked on the map in Ohio, and then went to Holmes County. And then I saw a report from 11 months prior of road crossing sighting between independent cars that didn't know each other. And that was like less than a mile from where I had seen it. So I'm like, what
Wow.
are the chances of that? I live in the middle of nowhere. And, we just, there's people to get like DSL and cable and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
The cell service is bad out here. And like, what are the chances of that happening? And the fact that there were two different cars that had seen it independently. And incidentally, if you've watched the back 80, those are the Christines that they interview. Just wonderful people, solid people in Loudonville. Church going people. They don't drink. Just volunteer for everything. Just really upstanding people. And I'm just like, wow.
I remember
If
that
they're
couple. They
saying
saw it
it,
on our anniversary.
right? Yeah, June
Yeah, it was
28th.
their
Yep, June
anniversary.
28th, 2012. Yep. And so that blew my mind. And so then I saw on the BFRO website that you could make a report. And I said, I'm like, yeah, I don't think I really want to make a report, but I'm just going to send an email saying that, okay, I saw something. I don't know if you want to know about it, but this is what I saw. And then the next morning at 10 o'clock in the morning, BFRO investigator Mark Mazel called me and said, I'm not surprised to hear to have you contact us because there have been several sightings in your area in the past 6 months. And I'm just like, you're kidding me. And I'm like, oh my gosh. It's like it just kept, all these dominoes started falling that this was actually could be real. And
Yeah, and then you didn't feel so crazy.
right, and that's actually, yeah, it is, yeah. Maybe I'm not so crazy about what I saw, and there's kind of you get that when people start, looking at you sideways, going, okay, yeah, she's a Bigfoot, right? You know, what's wrong with
That's gonna
her?
that's gonna bring me to a good question for you. Before we go further into other things that happened, how did you feel? What was your feeling like right after you saw it go across the road, and then a little bit after that? How did you feel? I mean, was it shock? Was it astonishment, or what?
I just was confused. I was confused, and then and after that, it settled on, okay, I've this is something strange that just happened, and I have no reference points for it, and I just kind of felt nervous, and I got kind of a creepy feeling, and I just wanted to bail after that. Maybe it was just because I wanted to get home and be in a comfortable surrounding because I just totally got, wigged out.
Yeah, and that's good that people can hear that because you're not alone. That's what a lot of people feel. And I guess I could take stock in the fact that's kind of a normal feeling that you would feel when you see something out there that not supposed to be real. You know, so
It was weird. It
that's
was
good.
strange. It was a strange day.
So so after you got started making contact and doing some research, what happened after that? Does stuff still keep happening around your house or anything?
Yeah, yeah, just things started ramping up really fast. 2 weeks after my sighting, my brother-in-law, Bernie's brother, was down for Memorial Day weekend. And usually we have a whole bunch of people, but this time it was just uh, Barry Ferencak. And so we were all hanging out all day, and we were goofing around, trying to learn what this whole Bigfoot thing's about. And I went on YouTube, which is probably the worst place to learn anything solid about Bigfoot, but that's what we did. And then we heard a bunch of howls, and so then in the afternoon we were kind of joking around. We were doing howls in the afternoon during the daylight. I mean, because like again, we live in the middle of nowhere, so if we're doing howls off the front porch as loud as we can, I don't think anybody's either going to hear us or care. you know so
Yeah.
and then later that night, we just went and hung out by the fire after dinner, and listening to tunes and stuff, and then we turned off the music, and then my husband went to bed, and this is now 1:30 in the morning, and Barry and I had been sitting there just in the quiet, maybe looking at our phones or whatever. And all of a sudden my brother-in-law Barry did this huge screech without telling me, and he just goes, "Wah!" I mean, just really loud, piercing screech, out of the depths of his frustrated soul, I like to say, because he was frustrated with life at that time, and he just ripped one off that was just tasty. And so I was laughing at him. I'm like, "That's awesome, Barry!" And then all of a sudden, we get a howl that sounds the screech. This sounds exactly like what he just did, and it was like maybe 3 or 4 seconds later. And so, I mean, it was not an echo. I mean, we live in the bottom of a valley, so we the sound carries all around us, and but this something screeched back at us, and so we were trying to think. I'm like, that didn't just happen, and I'm like, okay, now someone's screwing with us. I mean, we only have neighbors on one side, maybe about a quarter mile away, maybe a little less than a quarter mile. But it was, like I said, 1:36 in the morning. It was 35 degrees and dropping Memorial Day weekend, which is really cold for us. It's kind of sad, beginning of summer. summer, but we had a huge, big monster pile of wood, and we were warm. But there's only like maybe one house I could think of that somebody else would be up that late and to do a screech like that back at us. But it was really close. I mean, it was closer than a quarter mile away, and it was really
Wow.
super loud. I mean, like it was
Was that in the
really
is that
loud
in the
right there.
direction of the road that you were on?
Actually, it was. It actually was, and I'm like, oh my god, now it's here. And so as my mind is being blown, Barry does another screech, and he does a better screech than the last one. He didn't say a word, he was looking at me and just like, oh well, that was fun. I guess I'll do it again. And he did. And then the screech came back louder. Barry said actually thought it was closer. And it just was a screech. And then it went into a howl. And then it trailed off. I mean, the whole duration of that second sound, gosh, at least 10 seconds, maybe 20. I mean, it
Wow.
just was like it
Wow.
buried us. It was like, yeah, you think you're king of the woods. Well, yeah, listen to this. And at that point, I became like my mind just blew. And that's the moment when I actually believed that this was real
For real.
and that what I had seen was real. And now that it was here, but again, I started laughing hysterically.
Mm-hmm.
And the tears are coming down, and I was just kind of overcome. I had to get out of my camp chair and sit on the ground just to absorb the energy because I was laughing so hard. And I think I was laughing so hard because it was one of those I told you so moments after, catching hell for 2 weeks
It
about
was
Absolutely.
it. It was like,
confirmation. Yeah.
yeah, it was
Oh yeah.
total confirmation. And it wasn't until after that I thought, oh my God, now I wait a minute, that now it's here. And then I went and wouldn't get off the porch for a month and a half, I always say. Um, and that's when it started to, oh, okay, great, now it's here, and now it's on our
Well,
property, and now what do I do?
Well,
when that stuff happened, um, from your sighting up to that point right there, your husband, Bernie, what did he think of all of this?
He thought his wife went nuts. He's like, maybe
I
it
get
was a
that.
bear, and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's a better explanation, but we don't we especially 10 years ago we didn't have any bears around here. um and I don't know, it took a while, and that actually became, it was the first thing that Bernie and I didn't have in common in the 20 some years at that point that we had been married. And so it was kind of a different thing. And, now he's just like, okay, so there are Bigfoots around here, who cares? So, he's
So
fine
what
with it,
happened
but
after
it
that?
took a while.
So, now you have these howls that kind of confirm things for you and for the people who maybe not have been believing you right away. What happened after that?
Well, everything was calm for that was the end of May until the end of August. So May, June, July, August. So 3 months later, and I tried to put it out of my mind because at that point, I was getting to know Mark Mazel and some of the investigators that it actually had come out to investigate my sighting, and then my report got posted in the BFRO. Um,
Right.
but then, so we had a whole group of people down. We do a canoe trip every year, and this year we ended up just camping in our back campsite area instead of the Loudonville canoe liveries. And so we were just having a great time. The cornhole's going. People have got tunes on. Tons of food being cooked, laughing. All this, and so that was Friday night. Well, actually Thursday night. I should back up. The night before, I was getting that campsite ready, and Bernie and I and our dog went down to the campsite, and it was good to be with Bernie because I had where I used to walk there all the time at night by myself without a flashlight for 13 years that we had lived here. Had been nervous about going down there ever since that thing showed up. And so it was great. I'm like, okay, good. I've got, my big girl pants back on. And that's okay, Bernie. You can go back to the house. I'm fine. I've got Gus, the dog, here. I'm just going to sit here and, kind of reconnect with the back, campsite. And then all of a sudden, my dog, Gus, is a very obedient dog, but loves to go chase deer. It just starts going, "Arr,
mm,
arr," door, and he's got his ears pinned back, and he's sitting on the rug, and then he gets up like he wants to go back to the house. I'm like, where do you think you're going? I was like, get back here. You know? So he comes back, and he's sitting by me, and he's just looking off in the woods going like that. And so then, I'm like, I am not going to be run out of here. I'm not, this is my property. I'm not going to be run out of here. I'm just, just get a hold of yourself. And so I hung out there for probably another 20 minutes or so. And then I get up to walk in the house, and then, the dog just like, okay, bye, see ya. He's gone. I'm like, it's okay. I'm calm. This is fine. And then 2 days later, a girl we were camping with said she saw it in the backyard watching us.
Your backyard?
Yes, right where I
Wow.
was, right where you were camped. And it was crossing the field. She actually looked over because we were all looking at the Milky Way, because I wanted everybody to look at the Milky Way. That it was a really beautiful night, and a lot of city people don't get to see that. And so but we also had, after we were canoeing all day, it was really hot earlier in the day, and this fog settled in the valley, and so she saw it in the fog, which Jen said became like a light, which it was. You kind of looked over there, and like this whole fog was just bright. But we're all looking this way, and she's looking that way at the Big Dipper, and she's like, I didn't really know her really well, but she's like, what's that? What's that? And I kind of looked over. I didn't see anything. And then this other girl, Angie, looked over. She didn't see anything either. But you would think, and this is what kills me, it's one of my biggest regrets, is that I didn't pay better attention to someone who didn't speak up loud enough. And you have to pay attention to the quiet ones, because if I would have paid attention to her, and I don't know why, I wasn't thinking Bigfoot. Maybe, like I said, I was trying to put it out of my mind, but I could have had 5 people turn around and look at this thing. And she said it was like from here up. And she thought we were playing a joke on her. She set up a fake Bigfoot back in the field just to screw with her. And so she just kind of got mad or scared or something, marched back to the campsite, and then sits down like this with a sourpuss look on her face. And then the coyotes start going off crazy, like very close by, really loud. And she's like, what's that? And I'm just like, they're coyotes. Yeah, they can sound kind of intimidating. But then she wanted all the torches lit, and the other night she wanted them all out because she couldn't sleep. And then the next thing, I go down there in the morning, she's gone. And it wasn't until a few weeks later that my BFRO report was published. And I called up there to all all the Ferencaks and say, hey, for better for worse, what I wrote that night is published. And Jen was sitting on the porch, and she said, wait, you guys are serious about this Bigfoot stuff? And they're like, well, Suzanne is. And she's like, well, I saw it in her backyard. And I'm like, what? I was like, put her on the phone, So she tells me about it. And I'm like, now wait a minute, seriously. I was like, I'm not going to believe this until I actually talk to her. And I saw her in person probably a couple weeks later at a family party, and I saw that look in her eyes, and I believe her. And the fact that the dog was acting very strangely 2 days before. He had never done that before. So I don't know. There it was. Now then, that just threw me into a spiral. Now I'm like, okay, I'm really not getting off the porch again. So, and then stuff happened after that. Ugh, I could go on. You don't stop.
Did you have any more sightings on the property after that, of any kind, or did anybody else?
No sightings, but the damn thing came up behind me on the porch in October of 2014.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. That was like a year later, a year after Jen had seen it. But in the meantime, there was like a ton of knocks. I mean, good knocks. I mean, like, we've been on expeditions, and there's people get excited about knocks, but I'm talking, these were home run knocks right around our house, right next to what I call it the creepy hill. It's 100 feet from our house, which is a perfect lookout spot to spy on me, and us, and to watch us. I always pull the shades down now, after all that. But yeah, stuff hit the house 3 different times, which there are logical, natural explanations why a owl could run into chasing a flying squirrel, I've been told. But the knocks were there. No other vocalizations until The one night I was sitting there and I heard heavy footfalls approach me from behind. And a month before that, Tommy Amarone, I mean, they all had been nagging me, you've got to get a recorder. Because, I mean, how else am I going to prove this to anybody? All this stuff is going on. So I'm like, all right,
Right.
I'm going to get a recorder. We're going to start the recording project. And the second night that I had the recorder out, I put it out by our campfire, the wood, like near the campfire. I heard heavy, I listened to every second of it back. I heard heavy footfalls approaching that recorder. And I just put the headphones on all the in-laws. I'm like, yeah, what do listen to this. What is that? And then a month later, I heard those same exact heavy footfalls approaching me with the I had like a lattice thing right here that didn't have anything growing on it, and then my chair, and then it was kind of straight back, a straight line from my house back to the creepy hill and all that. And so I heard this thing, heavy footfalls approaching in the same manner that I had recorded it, and then it started breathing heavily, and it was right over my right shoulder. So that's where the mouth was right where my hand is. And so if you take 3 steps up on the porch, and based on where I was sitting and all that, we finally did the measurement. The mouth was somewhere around 7 feet in the air, and it was
Wow.
probably only 3 feet behind me, unless it was 5 and it was just that loud. And I just backed in the house and I didn't come out for 2 days. And then I told Bernie for 2 weeks that we had to sell the house and our property and our dream. It's over. Wife is not happy. We're out of here.
Hmm. So you were on an emotional
So,
roller coaster for a while.
oh yeah.
Now,
And then you had to get
out of
over the
that,
part about, go ahead.
hmm?
You had to get over the part about it was difficult, not to take it personally that people that know and love me for years didn't believe me. Um, so I had to,
Mm.
I'm better with that now because, but at the time I was taking it personally. But you can't,
Hmm.
you got to give people that don't think it's real pass, because I didn't think it was real. So I got over that. But then the other part is to do a lot of self-examination. Like, am I losing my mind? Seriously, it's like going through
Yeah.
all the mental things.
Oh yeah.
What is this? What am I doing? Am I processing this? Even the BFRO investigators are like, you have Squatch fever because you think everything is a Bigfoot. And I'm like, yeah. Why don't you just come down here and then you can
Right.
see that everything is in fact a Bigfoot around here.
Did through all this, when people came to and you were learning how to investigate, and people were coming from like the BFRO and everywhere, and they were all coming to investigate your experiences and the property. Did they ever find any footprints or wood breaks or wood structures or rock movement or anything like that? Did they ever find any evidence like those things?
Nope, never happened
Oh,
when they were around. It would the day after they'd leave.
no, I
Something would
mean, did
happen.
they when they investigated, did they ever find anything?
No, there's only the substrate here is not good for prints unless you're down by the creek by our house. Yeah, we've got a little creek running through, and there's a muddy spot there that I check from time to time. But so there's the footprints, no footprints. Bernie checked the whole house to see if there were like a dent or something from the 98-mile-an-hour baseballs that hit it 3 times. That sounded
Hmm.
like, and he couldn't. There's no dents or anything like that. And nobody else had an experience here except for Jen, but she was an investigator, but any of the investigators. Now they have been here and when stuff has happened, but they're asleep,
Okay.
vocalizations
Right.
and stuff like the one that happened in July. But no, and that was really
Have
frustrating.
Have you ever
Hmm.
found any tree structures?
No, there. I thought there was a glyph once. Somebody asked
Right.
Tom Powell about that. But things just fall the way they fall. And
Right.
Bernie and I were on a dart team, and you know, it'd be amazing the way I could throw my darts sometimes and how they would just go in different directions.
Right.
And he's just like, see, now that's another good example of how trees can fall in the forest. And I mean, it doesn't say that. I've seen some tree structures in other places where we've gone on expeditions, but I honestly I can't say for sure. I kind of tend to lean towards the fact that nature does what nature does.
Right.
Sure.
Well, for people that haven't watched the video itself, the movie, when you say your first sighting was on the road, was it jumping the road? Okay. So how far would that be from your home,
Less than a
actually?
mile. Less than a
Is it
mile.
in the same area? Less than a
Yes.
mile. And how
Yes.
long had you lived on the property before, after that you had incidents occur?
Almost 13 years. And nothing had
After the
happened before
first
that.
time?
No,
Really?
we had lived there.
Wow.
We lived there for 13 years. And
Yes,
then,
ma'am.
so we moved there in 1999. And then in May of 2013 is when I saw it. And
Saw
then
it.
from the time from when it approached me on the porch in October of 2014, I didn't have anything happen. Everything went quiet. No knocks, nothing until
Uh,
2020. Now I also have to disclaimer that I did put my headphones on when I would sit outside because I had to make a stand and I enjoyed sitting
right.
outside, but I didn't want to
Right.
hear the knocks anymore. I didn't want to hear breathing. I didn't want to hear
Yeah.
trees being pushed over. So for many years I just listened to my tunes. I think that's when I got a Bluetooth headphone set or
Right.
something. Just listen to
I
tunes. I didn't want to hear it anymore. And then
right.
when I finally took my headphones off in 2020, I heard one knock in 2020. And then there was another event where I heard 9 knocks one night. And then in 2021, there was another event where I heard 9 knocks. And, it seems to, like, for example, this year we had, like, when the harvesters, at the end of the season or when they're planting all the fields around us, it seems like there's a lot of activity. So it was really great because I'm thinking, okay, well, as soon as the tractor moved out of the big combine or whatever moved out of that field, then I'd hear knocks, and then
Right.
it would go over there, and then it moved out of there, then I'd hear knocks, and I can only think that the machinery was pushing the game, and maybe the Bigfoots were communicating, hey, I got rabbit over here, there's a deer coming
Mhm.
your way or something.
Right.
And I don't know, but that was a night when it seems like the only time I hear knocks really anymore is like if there's seems to be a reason for it or one that I can guess.
Do you think they're that you've been on the property for so many years, they're kind of used to you and Bernie and your dog? And then to add to that statement, I asked the question: when guests come, somebody that is new to the property or not around much, do you hear activity more then?
I don't know. It's strange. It doesn't seem like in 13 and 14-year-olds from work over because they've been hearing me talk about it, and as soon as they walked into the backyard, we heard a huge home run knock from on top of the hill. I mean,
Hmm.
really loud, and I just like, wow. But when other people have come, I haven't heard anything. So I don't know.
Oh,
It's I'll sit out at night late. There was one night when I was sitting on the front porch because I have a front porch and a back porch, and the front porch is like looks onto a bowl, and then a Sigafoos run, and then a hill, and I heard to my left, like across the field, and then I heard one 10 minutes later, like if it were in front of me, and then 15 minutes later over to my right. And again, because you can hear everything because we're in the bottom of a valley, and I'm like, wow, this is an awesome show. Something's going
Yeah.
on. So I have a lot. I don't even report them anymore, but I mean, if I do, I don't offload them like I used to.
Oh,
Wow.
I wonder if there were sounds before you saw the Bigfoot, but you just didn't pay attention to it.
attention to 'em.
That's exactly the question that Cliff Bergman asked me on Finding Bigfoot. He's like, "Do you think you just didn't, pay attention to it?" And I I don't think there were because I would sit out, and that was the difference because I used to live in Cleveland, Ohio, and to be in the city, and now we live in the country. I would just sit back and go, "Wow, I can identify every last living sound around here." And even if the guy down the road had put a pump on the gas well, and it made this little put, that, like, most people can't hear. I've got great ears, and I used to work in radio too, so I'm trained to listen. And I did not hear any knocks like that before 2013.
Hmm.
I think it just showed up, and I think my brother-in-law called it in. I think it was hanging around, and then I was always blame him like it's your fault, Barry. He thinks there's another
And
one
you
around here.
think,
He gets a good
So
call.
Suzanne,
and do
you
you think there's activity still today?
Well,
Occasionally.
there was in July, this past July.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah, big time. And I was at the point where I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do my thing. You leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, and it's fine. And that was good. But then I was kind of like, oh gosh, I wonder where they are. And then this year, July 2000, 2022, the neighbors down the road had spent a large amount of money on fireworks. And again, being in the country, no one's going to bother us for that. And they were just huge. I mean, big, huge booms over and over. And it sounded like the whole valley was a war zone. And then later that night, when everybody went to sleep, I walked my friend Mary back down to her down at the campsite. I came back and sat down, and that's when I heard those howls. And I'm like, I can't believe that I am just hearing this right now. But of course, I had a recorder going, thank goodness. And it just kind of showed me. I'm like, okay, yeah, they're still here. I mean, I made sure to vet it first, and a number of different qualified sources, and even paid attention to the two that were skeptical about it and kind of debunked their skepticism. And so I think that's what it was. And so I'm like, okay, that's cool. They're around still.
And that's the recording that we have.
Yeah. You have the both records. You have the footfalls
Yeah.
in September of 2000 or October of September they were recorded 2014, and then the howls from July 3rd at 03:52 2022.
Okay.
okay?
Joe,
So,
can we
yeah.
play those?
Yeah, hang on real quick. So Suzanne, you said you lived in Holmes County.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I know I've deer hunted up in Licking County, which is like southwest of y'all. Newton, I think, around that area. Um, so I'm kind of familiar with it. How rural it is there. And like big rolling hills and whatnot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I know there was times like the outfitters and all that. We would drive to different landowners, farms where we would hunt at, and people would have like those big silhouette cutouts of Bigfoot, like by their barns and whatnot.
You're right.
So, you know, yeah, I always got kind of get a like a giggle out of them because like, oh, okay, that's cool. Either they're either they're believers or they're they do that to kind of trick people, But obviously, it's that very typical silhouette. I mean, you see it on stickers and T-shirts and all
Right.
that. Now, any of your neighbors, do they come up to you and talk to you about hearing knocks or having things go on around their properties as well?
No, I didn't talk to them about it for a long time because I didn't want them to know. And it was
Okay.
kind of like protecting my research area. Plus, I didn't necessarily want to go up to the neighbors and say, "Hey,
Yeah.
I saw it,"
Yeah.
But no, one of them, she was an elderly lady, and then she ended up moving to the nursing home. And then the other family, they went to bed early because he was a janitor at the school, so he wasn't
Okay.
out late. His son, who has property just kind of next to him, believes in UFOs, but doesn't want to talk about Bigfoot. He doesn't think, I'm not saying he doesn't think it's real, but I got the I don't think it's real look, kind of thing. And then the other two, I've never really talked to about it, except for maybe once I did at the Legion finally. So they know that that's because in Loudonville now I'm kind of known as the Bigfoot lady, especially after the Back 80 came out and everything. Which is great because I'm happy that people contact me when something's going on. But my neighbors, they didn't talk to me about it, and I certainly know that they didn't. They weren't screwing with me either on it.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you did. Angie sent 2 recordings over, and one is from the September 2014, and it's like big footballs near your microphone. Do you want to hear that one first? I guess.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, whatever you guys want to do.
Okay. Here we go.
That's our gas well at the end there.
Ah,
Venting. Sorry, I should have warned you about that.
all right. That definitely sounded like some pretty big, heavy
That-
Wow.
footsteps.
That was some heavy
Yeah.
footfalls.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like it
Wow.
approached it stopped, and then
And
it
start
walked
again.
away.
So you just left
And
the recorder outside, and that's how you
Yeah, it
got
was the
this?
second night that I had the recorder out. I don't know, maybe it thought it
Wow.
was a candy bar. I don't know.
Ah.
What she just put out there, you know? And I sent
Were
it over to
those
Monongahela.
dogs,
What's
the
that?
dogs that you heard in the background, were they loose dogs or are they
They were
were they
down the road
running
dogs.
around?
They were
Okay,
no, they were
down
penned
there.
up.
They weren't your dogs. Okay.
Yeah, they were a
Okay.
little excited that night, you know, which
Okay.
is interesting
Yeah.
because
You
you
could
know
tell. Right.
you could tell when something was cooking because
The
dogs,
dogs would.
all of a sudden dogs, but dogs go off at a lot of different
Oh
things.
yeah.
But that night, yeah, they were going,
Yeah.
And Monongahela, I sent that to him. And I said, what can you tell me about this? And he said, all I could tell you, he's like, I can't tell you that it's a Bigfoot, obviously. He's like, but I can tell you that it's bipedal. So now, somebody was tromping through our yard. Somebody was spying on us or something and tromping through our yard up to that recorder.
No.
The fact that they even saw me put out the recorder. I mean,
Wow.
who would have seen me put out the recorder? It was in our backyard.
Right.
We've got trees, we were covered, so I don't know. I think that was a Bigfoot.
I had
Especially
listened
since
to
I saw
that.
it listening to it, a month later. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I had listened to that a couple of times earlier just over the computer, but did not realize how heavy those footfalls were
Footballs were.
until just now sitting here listening with the earbuds in. You
Yeah.
can really tell how heavy
Yeah.
those footsteps are.
Yeah.
And the weeds
you
were
could tell
maybe
by
this high, maybe that's probably how high the weeds were that it was tromping through.
But you could tell that the footfalls were far away, and then they were close, and then there was a pause, and then they were close, and then they were far away. Just like you said, it walked up, then it walked away.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell by the way they were thudding, how close it was. It's pretty neat.
Right.
And a deer, if you know deer, deer like.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then, so you sent another audio clip, and it was like an unknown howl before and after some coyotes. So, Angie, you listened to this one earlier?
I did just over the computer, not with the earbuds in. So
Okay, so I'll go ahead and play it real quick.
Okay, it's the howls and then coyotes and then the howls and then
Okay.
you'll know to pay attention to the second set of howls because it's embarrassing, but I burped. And that just so happens when the next you get a recorder hanging. I don't think anybody's around, or whatever, but that coincides with when they started again. So
Well, see,
man.
Angie, you're breathing it in the most famous thing.
well,
if I was setting this up, I certainly wouldn't have burped,
well, we had technical difficulty while a lot of that was going on. I've changed headphones, so I think some of that from last night might have been my headphones.
All right. So, all right, we're going to listen to Bigfoot howls, coyotes, and burping. So, here we go.
And that's it. I put an extra
Ah.
10 seconds on the
Wow.
end of it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean,
That's
I'm open to if somebody else can come up with another idea. It's still under investigation, but I haven't heard anybody else tell me anything yet.
that's
Well,
pretty.
before and after does not sound like the alpha coyote starting it off or
Yeah.
finishing. Does not sound like that at all. That's not coyote.
No.
I had a professor at a coyote expert professor at an unnamed university tell me that the first and the end was not a coyote,
Yeah.
and he doesn't know what it was.
Wow, that's pretty
And
good.
Monongahela said that he thought, I sent it to him too. And I'm like, all right, do you have anything in your database like this? And he came back with, he's like, Suzanne, I actually think you got something there. And he talked about there's like some ahs, like, that coyotes can't do. And then he actually, at the tail end of the first howl, he's like, if you pay attention, I didn't even realize this until he pointed it out. There's another one that answers one, that starts it off, and then there's another one that answers. And he actually thinks there's a knock or two in there too, but he's got all this big time equipment and stuff. And he can see all that. But, I always think of like, why? Well, why did it do it? Well, there's a good reason why, because I think if I were a Bigfoot hanging out in Drake's Valley, Ohio, and those fireworks went off, that the Allardings, blew off at the end of the road, down the road a little bit, just, quarter mile or so down the road, those things would be upset. I mean, it was just like a boom, and the echo was almost as big as the original blast, and the fireworks going off. I mean, they must have blown off $10,000 worth of fireworks.
Wow.
And so I think that they were, I would guess, a reason could be that they were upset and everybody scattered, and then kind of like, okay, where are you? Because like Monongahela said, to him it sounded like one Sasquatch calling out for another Sasquatch.
Probably messed up their
So,
hunting that night or something, the fireworks.
Somebody had said that they thought it was a coyote caller, like one of those professional coyote callers. But then, like, Steve Cole said, and that was a good point, if it was, it would have been a consistent call. It's like a recorded one, it would have been. But this wasn't consistent.
Yeah, and they don't sound like coyotes anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, that's you would know. I mean, so I ask a lot of hunters what they think. But I had never heard one like that, kind of higher pitched like that.
It almost has a whoop in it. If you've heard whoops, it's got a whoop, but then it just continues.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty interesting.
You heard a whoop in it? Is that what you're saying?
It sounded like a whoop was starting, but it kept going.
Like a siren.
Siren
Yeah.
type.
There you go.
Like whoop.
Yep.
Winds up.
Winds up.
Okay, so you heard that. Yeah, I'll have to listen to it again. That's why I like that's why I like playing it for people that have experience, because I'm like, what do you think of it? And
I've heard the whoops and I've heard the howls and that there was a couple of them in the front and in the back that sounded like a whoop was starting, and then a whoop, of course, is going to be short, but it just kept dragging on into a howl. It was quite interesting to hear. It's pretty neat.
I've never heard whoops before live. I've heard recorded whoops that other people have, but I've never heard a whoop live yet.
I can honestly say I've never heard a coyote like that.
Uh-uh.
And I've heard a lot of coyotes down here. And
well,
and I mean, in the middle of the night when there's nothing else but a coyote, I've never heard them, sound
never
like
heard
that.
one make that sound
that's why
before.
I like to ask people like you.
No.
Wow.
Never heard it.
Well, and then I sent it to my friend across the river, Gretchen, and I'm like, hey, Gretchen, have you heard this over by you? And she's like, no, but can I put it on the Wally Road Scenic Byway Facebook page? I said, sure, as long as you don't use my name or my location. And so she did. And then I didn't realize that there's 15,000 followers on that. And then she got contacted by the Mansfield News Journal reporter who said that he wanted to interview the person that had recorded these howls. And so I had to really think about it for a couple of days. So I'm like, okay, that's going to blow my whole area again. But I'm like, if I didn't get blown from the back 80, if it helps generate, local reports, then all right, go ahead. And so he interviewed me. He was a great guy. Nice interview. He wasn't poking fun. or anything. And then that story got picked up by some other of the local newspapers. And then they were connected to the USA Today. And then the USA Today, it just started going crazy. It started going everywhere.
Wow.
He went to India, it went to England. It was
That's
nuts.
cool.
Wow.
It just went everywhere. And then all of a sudden I got bombarded with a bunch of, requests. And then, the usual, oh, it's a coyote, or, she's this or that. I didn't intend for any of that to happen, but it actually kind of coincided perfectly with the publicity that we needed to do for the Pleasant Hill Lake Bigfoot base camp event. So, some people might say, oh, she just did that for the publicity, but I just said, thank you, Sasquatches, because I was able to mention it, every time somebody interviewed me about it.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, tell us about some of the stuff you and Scott have been on together.
Well, we've been to Tellico
Yep.
in the snow.
Hmm.
That was a quite a cold one. Up in Tennessee, it snowed pretty good up there.
Yeah, because we had to move the location.
Yeah, we had one specific location that we were going to go to, and the snow and ice was so bad that our expedition leader, which will be on next week, Lori Wade, moved us and coordinated and found us a new spot. Ended up in a different part of Tennessee, which ended up in Tellico, but at a campsite there, and from there we went out to different locations. That's one place that I found some wood structures that Rick Relis verified. He's got a book out on wood structures, and then
that was interesting. If there was ever a wood structure, those were interesting.
yeah. And,
were you there when Charlie Raymond played? He was doing his presentation and he played the sound.
Absolutely was. I actually stepped out outside of the tent when it happened, and I started pointing out where the responses were coming from. You want to tell them about that?
Yeah, that was awesome. We were all out in this upstairs of kind of an outdoor structure, so it was all open. And Charlie Raymond's giving a presentation, and he's got a big PA speaker set up, and he starts blasting these howls out of the speaker that he had recorded somewhere, and then all of a sudden we hear the same howls come back from like the far end of the campsite, and all of a sudden we look at each other. I look at Lori Wade, I'm looking at Rick Rellis, and all of a sudden we just like, did we just hear what we just heard? And I was just like, half the whole presentation audience just like ran downstairs. I was like plugging in the recorders and stuff. And that was so funny. Totally got an
People
answer.
Scattered everywhere.
Yeah, it's like, sorry, Charlie, bye.
Meaning
But I was in the back of it. His recordings. If people don't know Charlie Raymond, he's the head of the Kentucky BFRO. He's a good guy. And has been doing investigations for years within that state because there's just so much activity. Mm-hmm. And he had those recordings, part of his presentation. He had that amplifier and he played them. I mean, it's very, very loud up there. And that's, as Suzanne said, we got the response. I stepped out the back of the tent when that happened. And there was a small lake right next to our camping area. And we started getting howling responses from 2 to 3 different directions, and
stirred them up.
They were clear. There was no coyotes, no anything else. There were clear responses, howls coming right back, which tell you that there were something Bigfoot making those sounds. 3 different locations outside of our camping area, 2 of which were across this small lake. And people scattered everywhere, grabbing recorders and night visions and in little groups and just taking off everywhere.
It turned out to be a great location. We had to move from the original location, but it turned out to be a great location.
It turned out to be absolutely great. Mm-hmm. It was a great place.
Yeah, Lori knows what she's doing.
Yeah, we got dumped on snow, but that passed and we moved on.
It was 20 degrees that night too.
Oh,
for her in a tent.
Terrible outside. I ended up coming home with bronchitis, as a matter of fact. But
That's the first
I
time I
had
ever had a heater plugged into my tent.
oh wow.
It worked well. I was like next to electricity. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get asphyxiated, but at least I'm warm.
Leave a little
Yeah.
air hole. That's what I do. Leave a little bit of air coming in.
Yep, good idea.
So Suzanne, you have you contacted the BFRO and then you ended up on one of the shows. And how did that go? How was that working with the Finding Bigfoot crew?
The crew was great. I was a complete nervous wreck. Um, it was I'd been begging the investigators to come hang out and stay overnight at our place, and nobody did. I mean, they'd stopped or whatever, they stopped by and stuff like that. But once they found out that Finding Bigfoot was in town and I was going to be interviewed, well, then they all showed up. And so I had this whole huge group of people camping at our house. So I was completely distracted, making sure everybody was okay. And, I was all jaked up. I was more excited about the fact that there were investigators staying overnight than I was about the TV show. But so then, finally, the last one goes to bed at like 3 o'clock in the morning or something. And, I just finally, that's the time I'm always the last one up. That's my quiet time. I always have, kind of a cool down time. And then I get, it's peaceful and quiet. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I got to go on national television tomorrow. I really should get some sleep. And then the sun started to come up, because I was waiting, hoping that something would happen that night when all the investigators were there. But sun's coming up. I'm like, all right, well, nothing happened. Now I gotta catch some sleep before I go on the show. And then sure enough, somebody comes out of their tent and comes up to the house. I'm like, oh no, now I have to make sure they have coffee. And so then I really didn't sleep at all. And so I was really bleary eyed. And then when I finally, we finally made it onto the show, just before I drove down the road, I was with Mark Mazel, and I said, okay, this is the tree. It's the big gray tree. That's the one I've been looking at. That's the one I remember. He's like, no, it's the 3 trees behind it. I'm like, okay, great. Now, which is only like, difference of 20 feet or something, but 10 feet, whatever. And I'm just like, okay, now I'm going to go on the national program, and I don't have the place right where it jumped. And that was, I was like, so they're like, oh no, and, so it was just, I felt like it was a big disaster. And then, like, I wore all the wrong clothes, being a girl. I'm just like, why did I wear that?
You're like me.
No
I critique
sleep,
myself so bad. Oh my God.
didn't look good. And all this stuff was going on. How am I going to tell the world what is going on without coming out like a complete idiot? So I don't know. It's just, I mean, Cliff was really great. That's when I got to be friends with him, and he's just like, "Don't worry about it, Suzanne." He's like, "The editors do a great job. They'll make you look good, whatever." And it did turn out so bad, So, but then the equipment kept like dying. Right when we would get a good shot, all their batteries would die, and then we had to do it over again. And which was funny because then the light kept moving. So then they had to keep moving my location further anyway. So we actually did film between the gray tree and where Maisel said it was. We got close enough. But they were
Wow.
great. They were wonderful. I mean, and I've got great friends with Cliff and Bobo and Matt. Has been was wonderful with the base camp event last year, and he's coming back this year for it. And then I've seen Renee since at a couple events, and she was just so nice. She's actually the one that kept me calm. And kind of explained what was going on. So I just love them. I think they do a great job, and I was very proud to be on that show, but very nervous.
Well,
So
what
how
is the
long
base?
when they come in there and that time for the recording and investigation of the TV show, how long are they actually there investigating and doing all that to bring us an hour of show? A week or what?
Oh gosh, I mean, because they interviewed the Christines, and the Christines didn't make it on. And I think my location, because their report's better than mine. But I think they used my location because the scenery was better. And then they did night stops over in the Mohican State. They cameras were turned off. They had a sighting. And they got good. So they just put tons and tons out in the can, and then it all gets edited down into like what is an hour minus commercials. So it's a lot of work for a short period of time.
Mhm. Um, Suzanne, what exactly is the Pleasant Hill Lake Bigfoot Base Camp? What is that?
Pleasant Hill Lake Park is part of the Muskingum Watershed Conservancy District. It's a government organization that is in charge of flood control up and down the Mohican River Valley, and not just that, but they control their waterways, control 20% of the state. So here's this. Well, that's not a whole map of Ohio, but um, yeah, you probably can't see this, but if this is Ohio, they control like this whole area right here, right there. It's all flood control. And anyway, so they have one recreational park called Pleasant Hill Lake, and it's across the lake. The lake is just there for it's like a man-made lake that the
Mhm.
Army Corps of Engineers built in the 30s. Where they just hold water and control it going down the river. And so there's, people boat on it and stuff. And then so the Pleasant Hill Lake campground is there, and it's a beautiful facility, great welcome center. And it's across from the Mohican Lodge and next to the Mohican State Park. And so in August of 2020, uh, I had caught word from a local that there was a sighting at Pleasant Hill Lake Park in the primitive campground. And so I chased over there to check it out, and then stayed up all night, camped out at that one site, and then ended up talking to the ranger for quite some time. And basically, a Bigfoot just scared this young family. It had a toddler and a baby and a mom and a dad. And then it had walked through part of the campsite. And right next to the latrines, they could tell how tall it was. It had been throwing stuff at the tent, like sticks and stones and stuff.
Mhm.
And they called 911. They were so afraid of it, and didn't know what was going on. But anyway, the ranger kept my information and shared it with other people in the park. And then I got I don't know, about a year and a half later or so, I got a message on email saying, "Hey, we want to do an educational event for families and kids, nature conservation, that kind of thing, with a Bigfoot twist. Would you be interested in volunteering to help out?" And I said, "Sure, that'd be great." And so we started, talking and everything. And at that time, Matt Moneymaker had put out a couple different reports from the Ashland County area, you know, my home turf, basically, because Holmes and Ashland's right next to each other. Um, and so I said, well, if you really want to, let's get the guy that did the reports and have him come in from California and tell everybody, what was going on in Ashland County. And so, we negotiated that, and they went for it, and so did Matt. And then Matt said, well, let's bring, I'm working on a new project with thermal drone imaging and, Bigfooting, squatching at night. And so he wanted to set that whole thing up. So we did, and got some volunteers and did some night ops, and did a few firsts for that kind of technology of looking for Bigfoots in the middle of the night. And everybody was connected to this one app, and so they could tell where all the investigators were. And then they
Mhm.
broadcast it live in front of an audience Friday and Saturday night. And it was great.
Oh, I know
I
that
mean,
was
there were technical
fun.
issues,
Yeah.
but it was fun. It was really
Yeah.
great. And then, for me, we had a town hall that Saturday night. That was the best part, when some locals could come forward and give their experiences, because it's a tough nut to crack around here. People actually coming forward and feeling comfortable. And several people came forward who had never spoken to anybody about their sightings before. And I got some contacts after that too. So it was really great. I loved it. And so it was a lot of fun. And the kids had a great time, and adults had a great time, and the volunteers had a great time. And so we're looking forward to it'll be the first
Good.
weekend in October. They haven't announced the dates yet, but it's going to be the first week in October this year.
Be great.
Yeah, well, that sounds fun. Well, let's
Looks like we
tell
lost
every
Scott here. So
I see. He's
yeah,
not
he needs
around.
to come back
yeah,
on.
yeah, and he hasn't tried to come pop back in. So must have been bedtime or something. Well, he was already laying in bed. So um, So I guess get maybe a cell phone. Decided it was time to go to bed. Who knows?
You know what? I bet his battery died.
Yeah, yeah,
I bet you that's what it is. I bet he's searching around for his charger.
yeah,
We're gonna have to start practicing weekend at Bernie's with him. Keep him
yeah,
out of the bed.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Well,
Suzanne,
Suzanne, let's tell every. I'm sorry, Barb. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to ask her, what other type animals do you see on your property? Anything?
Oh well, mostly deer. We have so
Okay.
many deer. It's not even funny. I mean, I've uh,
There's
last
some
year
big, yeah,
$10,000 in damage.
Oh,
It's just there's so many of them.
oh yeah.
State of
yeah. There's
Ohio set a record this year.
yeah, there's some big deer up there. I could tell. I know that for a fact. Oh,
Wow.
yep,
Yeah, yeah. You
yep,
you were hunting and looking, but
yeah.
that's so deer. We've got turkey, grouse, rabbit,
So
possum, raccoon,
just
skunks.
normal
Yep.
wildlife then,
Yep.
Yeah,
It's cool, but mainly deer.
Yep.
owls. Lots of good owls.
Oh,
Yeah.
well,
Coyote.
Suzanne, yeah, Suzanne. Well, thank you for coming on. I need to step away from the camera and all that, so I'm gonna remove myself here from the studio. But thank you for coming on board. Man, you know your documentary was fantastic. Um,
Oh, thank you.
you're sharing your stories with about the finding Bigfoot and all the research stuff that you're doing. The audio clips, super amazing. So
Yeah.
Hey,
uh,
sorry
th-
about that. I got dropped somehow.
yeah, so thank you so much. But I'm gonna step out. And then y'all go ahead and continue. And Angie, you'll have to hit stop when you guys are done.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much. I
Joe.
really
All
appreciate
right,
it.
thank you, Suzanne.
I don't
Thank
have
you,
a
Joe.
stop button, but okay.
Yeah, I just dropped off and couldn't get back on. I don't know what happened.
We
I
didn't
don't
know
have a
what happened to you.
stop button.
I just went poof, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So, where are we? What did I
Let
miss? What did I
me
miss?
in. I just saw
This
where
is
it
me
popped up
babbling.
there.
You
Let
didn't miss
me in.
anything, Scott. Don't worry about it. What do?
well, Suzanne, let's tell everybody about Bigfoot trivia. How did that come about?
That was in 2019 at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference. Cliff and Bobo did a Bigfoot trivia night in the bar area, and it was such a great crowd that year. Lots of great people, and of course, the year before the pandemic, and so everybody piled in, and everybody chose up teams and everything, and you paid $20 to join it, and and they put out 50 questions, and I was just embarrassed about what I didn't know. And then Bernie was on the team, and he didn't know anything, and Jeff Chrisman, like this is two real lame team members here, and then Jeff Chrisman knew something, and so he was good. And then we had Mike Assorti. We're like, okay, this will be good. We got Chrisman and Assorti, but then Assorti was packing up his table because he sold out. He sells all the T-shirts, and we're like, come on, get over here, we're losing. And it was it was a lot of fun, but it was embarrassing. And so
Mm-hmm.
I went home and I took all those questions and I wrote them all out on flashcards, just like, when you're in grade school. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and then I'm learning all the information, which is, some of it's easy, stuff you
Mm-hmm.
should know, like what's the date of the PGF, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And other things were very difficult about, book authors and stuff like that. And so once I did the 50, questions, then I'm like, well, let's just do 50 more. And then I got Todd Prescott to help me out of Canada, BC. Uh, God, I think he's in BC. But anyway, he's in Canada, and he was great because he's the guru of history, Bigfoot history, and he was so great with all the punctuation and everything. And I reached out to all kinds of great people, the best in the business. I said, "Can you verify this for me?" People who were there at the time, people who had tons of history, and I did. They're all great, and I thanked every one of them. And so there's 100 questions, and the first year I put it out, there was no way to keep score. You just like kind of had to give your answer, and so people were
Mm-hmm.
complaining that they couldn't keep score. And so then I asked Bernie, can you go back and fix this? And so I had to make all the questions true and false and multiple choice. And thinking about some of the multiple choice wrong answers was actually kind of fun too. But I can tell you, if it's a really difficult question, here's the hint: it's usually A. And
Okay.
Usually A.
so you want to
I'll make a note of
it's
that.
usually A. If it's a really difficult question, it's usually A. And that's for questions 50. No, actually all of them. I was gonna say 50 to 100, but yeah, but it's usually A. And then it's also usually true, because I kind of felt bad putting out like something false. So yeah, if you stick with A and true more times than not, then you'll be good.
We'll pass. Our team will win.
You'll pass.
Our team
Yeah,
won.
your team will win.
Now, the only person that sees the score is yourself, the person taking it. Am I correct?
Yeah, person taking it. Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't
and it
have
only
like
shows.
it's not like a video game where it shows the high scores. That would be the
Gotcha,
next
okay.
version. I should get Bernie to
Well,
do
I
for
wouldn't
me.
do it if it showed who and how much you did. Because I would be.
No,
Don't worry, I'd be
Yeah.
at the bottom of the pile. So
No, I can't believe that. But
I
no,
can remember the year of the Patterson Gimlin film, but I
Yeah,
can't remember.
yeah.
I can't remember the date. November.
well, you'll have a couple of
1967,
choices. You'll have like
October
there'll be a couple
67.
different choices of
October.
like 67. It was October, October 20th, 1967. Now that's an
Okay.
easy
Yeah.
one, so it probably
That's an
isn't
easy one.
A.
I remembered it. A.
It's probably like D.
Hey.
It's like, what was Roger Patterson's middle name? That's
Oh
oh,
Lord.
gosh, I think it's Clarence. But anyway, that would be like an A answer.
A.
what are my choices?
Well, Suzanne, we greatly appreciate you coming on tonight.
Oh, this is fun, you guys. Thanks so
Yeah,
much
it's
for
been
talking
real
to me. I really
fun.
appreciate it.
So
I
we're
had one
gonna,
more question for you, Suzanne.
Yes, sir.
Since this is women in the field, all right, and it's all about Bigfooting, and you've had your experience and went through all these times of thinking you were crazy and then you're not. You're not now, and people who know you're not. What would be the one thing that you would tell women who are going into this field to either do or think when doing it?
I would just say trust your gut. Just trust yourself, and trust just trust yourself.
Okay.
As simple as that. As simple as that. And because if you don't have confidence, you have to do your own research for your own benefit, for your own self. And the part about oh, I want to show them. I mean, there's that. I wish I could show them. What I'm talking about, or I wish they'd believe me, or I wish this or that, whatever. It does. That part of it is not going to help you at all. What you have to do is prove it to yourself and do your own discernment and your own methodology, and make sure you're good with it yourself. The rest of it,
Awesome.
it'll come as it comes.
That's awesome. Well, for me, I want to thank you for coming on because I, talked you into it per se.
Yes, you
And
did.
but I
I don't
knew
like doing
that
these. I get
you were.
nervous, but thank you.
I knew though that you were well experienced in Bigfoot based on all of your experiences and all the stuff that you've researched and learned along the way, and you would be somebody that is really good to come in and talk about this thing. So
Mhm.
No,
thank
thank
you
you so
again very much.
Yeah. Really
Nanny,
enjoyed
and
it.
everybody. I just loved meeting you guys in face to face now.
I
Scott,
Oh
know.
yeah,
I really
good.
appreciate all the great communications, and thanks for what you're doing, and I wish you all well and have a great 2023.
I think
Thank
that
you. And you
you're
do the
always
same,
welcome to
Suzanne.
go out with any of us in our team.
Oh,
So
thanks.
if you
guys
ever
got
make your
good
way down here, you let us know and we'll coordinate it. We'll get you out there with us.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to take you up on that. For
Maybe
sure.
we can meet up at a conference or something. Maybe
Yeah, that'd
we'll
be
cross paths.
That'd be great. That'd be great. Come on up to
Well,
PHL if you want. We're just gonna have a good time.
I'm still going to try to take you up on that. Come up there and camp on your property at some point one day.
Seriously, I mean, you guys, I would love it. I would love you all to camp up here. And Bernie and I, God bless him. He's such an awesome husband. He loves, cooking on the grill and all that kind of stuff. He's been so wonderful through all of this.
That's great.
Just such an awesome support for me. Even when he thought, his wife was losing her mind, I've been with her this long, what am I going to do? Throw her out.
Even in this field, when you first get into it and you think you're alone, you're not. You just got to start meeting people and realize you're not. And it's good to have support.
I remember that first Bigfoot conference at first OBC. I was just like, oh my gosh, look at all these people, Bernie. They all love Bigfoot.
Yep. These are my people.
I'm not alone, right?
You're my tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was on after that.
It's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, you guys are all welcome up here, seriously. And I've got good spots. I've got good local information. I know where they are. I'm actually not interested in seeing them. I'd like a footprint, but I really don't have an interest in seeing them again. But I've got good hot spots. I know where they are. I know where they have been. At least put it that way.
That's
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I look forward to getting out on the trail with you again sometime.
Yeah, I'd like that. Like too soon.
I have family that live in Ohio, so I'm gonna just have to see how close they are to you.
Yeah.
What county?
I don't know. I've never visited them.
Well,
I'm gonna have to find out.
Now you're gonna have to become their best friend again in family.
Well, it's not far. I mean, we're centrally located in the state, so it's not far to get anywhere in this.
Are you near Mark Oglesby?
Mark Oglesby is in Columbus, and Columbus is about an hour and 15, hour and 20 from here, down the back roads.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's been here several
And
times.
how far are you away from Cincinnati?
Cincinnati be from here about 3 hours.
Oh, okay. I took my wife and I took our granddaughters to the Ark. And,
that's cool. I heard that's really cool.
Yeah, it's a really awesome thing to see. So we were 3 and something hours away from you.
Yeah, you just keep on going, Keep
Yeah.
on heading north. I'd love to have you guys here. It'd be fun.
Yeah. All
Sounds
right.
like a plan.
We'll hope to see you guys.
Good to see you guys.
Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thanks everybody out there as well for watching.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Suzanne.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See y'all.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.